Here we are at question 7 for the second passage of LSAT PrepTest 157's first section, the reading comprehension section. And we read the question stem first, which states the author's defense of the prescriptivist approach in the fourth and fifth sentences of the final paragraph would be most strengthened if which one of the following were true. So this is actually logical reasoning and reading comprehension. And we want to treat this as if it were a strengthened task. So we want to support the prescriptivist approach. And it's one of those things where you have to have an understanding of what the prescriptivist approach is, probably before even going to these final sentences of the passage. We know that up front, the prescriptivists were the ones who were basically trying to stick to the definition of data as a singular noun. They want to stick to the way that it used to be. And we know from the ending paragraph and our highlighted sentences that the author of this passage is actually in favor of the prescriptivist approach, at least obliquely, because this final paragraph is responding to the objections of the descriptivists. So we've got these green highlighted sentences. And anytime you have something that's highlighted in this green or some other color on the LSAT automatically, you don't need to highlight anything. But we are going to want to read at least a sentence above and a sentence below of the term or location reference that is highlighted so that we can predict what might work here. And of course, prediction is a major part of logical reasoning. So we want to come up with an idea that says something to the effect of find information to show that, this conclusion is in favor of the prescriptivists, meaning that they want it to be the way it was. So we'll read just from the beginning of the paragraph. With regard to the scientific objection, it should be noted that while many attempts to regulate language have failed, some have succeeded. Descriptivists may respond that in the latter cases, the usages favored by prescriptivists were in accordance with the laws governing linguistic change and would have prevailed without their assistance. But this is in large measure an article of faith. In the end, it must be acknowledged that the laws governing the transformation of language are not like the laws of physics. Language usage depends on choices made by individuals who are subject to persuasion. In response to the egalitarian objection, prescriptivists point to the importance of standard language usage for the free exchange of ideas. So we know that we want to find something in the answer choices that says, actually, we want to have standard that is set, and that standard is actually successful in regulating language, as our main idea highlighted sentence at the beginning of this paragraph states. So we have that in mind. We need to find an answer choice that says, yeah, actually, you can regulate usage of language in some fashion. So starting with choice a study showed that communities left to formulate their own rules of grammar typically develop rules very similar to those of other communities. Well, the prescriptive grammarians don't want the communities to be left to their own devices. They say that there are experts, these elites, that need to create standards that will allow the usage of grammar for the free exchange of ideas. So choice A is really a reversal that is kind of pro the descriptivist perspective. So now that we know that choice A is wrong for a definite reason, we can scroll down and frame up the next three choices. Choice B, a study found a strong correlation between emphasis on grammar instruction in primary schools and lifelong adherence to the rules of usage taught there. Okay, so this is basically saying how regulating language can succeed. So if you've got a good understanding of the paragraph, you can see how the grammar instruction led to adherence. So that again gets to that idea of if you enforce it, you'll actually get other people to become kind of prescriptivists themselves. So choice B absolutely supports the prescriptivist perspective, which the author is in favor of. So moving on now to the remaining answer choices, just for the purposes of this video primarily, we see choice C. A cross-cultural study found that nations with extensive formal education systems and those with minimal education systems demonstrate a similar range of variation in language use. Well, this is going to be a reversal because it says there isn't a difference between the formal education system that the prescriptivists would prefer versus a minimal enforcement that would be more like the descriptivists. So choice C is something that would more weaken the author's defense of the prescriptivist approach as opposed to strengthening it. Then choice D, A study showed that groups of students left to formulate their own rules of grammar usage were more likely to reach agreement if they had little prior instruction in correct usage. Well, again, we don't want them to have little prior instruction for the prescriptivists. We want to basically teach them grammar at the outset. So we can eliminate choice D again as something that's a reversal more than anything else. And then choice E, a report demonstrated that within certain communities, linguistic practices were quite uniform despite large differences between communities. Okay, certain communities. Which communities are there? Hopefully, we can recall some of our common wrong answer choices for logical reasoning, and vague impact is a great reason to eliminate. And I know nothing about which certain communities these are, whether these are communities that engage in grammar instruction as the prescriptivists would recommend or not. So I need additional information. E is incredibly vague. And of course, as we stated at the earlier part of this video, choice B is the correct answer that strengthens that defense of the prescriptivists in this final paragraph.